Hello and welcome to the Media Bowl Podcast, where we talk all things content creation. Whether you're hitting record for the first time or you're working on your next big budget film, we want to give you all the tactical tools and advice to make sure that you are ready to go the next time you hit the record button. I'm Eric.
I'm Justin.
And today we're going to be talking about storytelling. We are a storytelling company.
Yes.
I think it's very easy to say, oh, we're a film company. Oh, we're a video agency. No, we're a storytelling company. We're going to talk today about why that's important and why we feel like we stress so much about it, because I want to say it's a new thing, but I think it's taken on a new life, if you will. So I'm starting out. We did this in a previous episode, and I'm going to do it again. And I want your thoughts on this. While you were in the bathroom between episodes, asked Notion AI to explain to me, to define storytelling from a filmmaker's perspective. And I really like what it dished out. So I'm going to read this out.
These AIs are...
This one's actually a lot better than what it normally gives me too. So in filmmaking, storytelling is the process of conveying a narrative through the use of visual and auditory elements. It involves the creation of characters, settings, and events that together form a cohesive and engaging story. Effective storytelling in a film requires a combination of technical skill, creativity, and an understanding of the intended audience. The goal is to immerse the viewer in the story and create an emotional connection that resonates long after the film has ended.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's the podcast.
Yeah, I'm impressed by that answer, quite honestly. But you can pop it open now if you feel like you need to. But talk through that. Give me a deep dive on that.
I mean, yeah. So I guess I'll bring it back. Our job as filmmakers is to have the knowledge, have the tactics, have the planning, have the processes to do all the things that the AI, is explaining. Yep. And that's why I believe AI will never take our jobs, because that needs to happen.
I don't know, Justin, that was a pretty good
definition. That's a great definition. Great definition. But I don't know if it's ever going to be shooting and, handling a crane and concepting and doing all those little details that make it a human story and a human perspective. And I think that's what's really key. But yeah, storytelling, we had an episode about pre-production and all that, and it really does start in pre-production so that you can get the proper tools you need. You can get the proper gear ordered to make the correct shot that you need to tell the story in a certain way that's going to evoke emotion. We'll talk a little bit later about how different shot types provide you with different feelings. Yeah, storytelling is amazing, and something that I did want to mention, it's one of the greatest mediums, storytelling, and it's something that's been done all through human nature, all through human existence, whether it be cave writings on a wall, or whether it be poetry, or whether it be, theater plays, all those type different things. Storytelling has been around for forever and is not going anywhere, because it's the easiest way for us to connect as humans. Us as filmmakers are living in maybe one of the greatest ages of storytelling, because we have the technology to literally tell a campfire story, in the best way, where you can sit down at your house and watch it on TV, so, maybe even a good, a good tool, thing you can do is sit down and just tell stories. I tell stories to my daughters before bed and just make up stuff, but it's when you kind of have a good structure and understand what storytelling is, it's really engaging and it's really exciting, and it helps them fall asleep. And storytelling is here to stay. It's been here forever. So understanding that concept is super powerful.
Yeah, I think, when you were giving examples, I always think, there's a Simpsons episode where there's like an old man that's just sitting at a bench, but like the camera kind of pans to him, and then there's a whole bunch of little kids, and they're like, "Oh, an old man, let's go sit down." And he just like goes in, and they don't obviously share the whole story, but goes into a whole bunch of stories. So there's just that aspect of that's it. You talk to grandma, grandpa, they got stories.
Man, the elderly folks are the best people to learn storytelling from, because their minds are telling you, they're recounting memories, and they do a good job of like being detailed, because they know you weren't there and you don't even understand that era, so they have to be a little bit more explain more and dive a little deeper. And listening to your elders, you can learn a lot. You can learn a lot.
And if there's little kids around, they're going to ham it up a little bit. So you get a little bit of that in there as well. So no, I think that's super interesting. So I'm going to pose this, and maybe it's somewhere we go, maybe it's somewhere we don't go, but why do you think storytelling has taken up new legs as of late?
I think, and we talked about this before, the advent of social media and just quick content and putting out content quality or quantity over quality, I think has watered down the storytelling skill, number one. And then there's a lot more people that are just making content that really aren't storytellers. They're not, skilled in that regard. They don't understand that. I think in the past, when all you had was printed media and, early television, like those were the best of the best in the world at storytelling. So that's what you were used to. Now anybody can pick up a phone and make things. So not everyone is going to be that level of storytelling. So the people that understand that concept, whether you are a new creator or not, tend to have a lot more success because they're more engaging. And it's all about engagement, right? But I mean, for instance, I was watching, there's a office page where they just show their office. And there's this one guy that has the best office ever. And all he does is walk through the door and show the office over and over and over. And every post, every day is the same thing. There's no storytelling there. It's just show me what you got. Then there are other creators that actually, have skits and concepts around, what it's like to be a gamer or whatever. And that is much more engaging. And I, follow that and get, entrolled in that type of content way easier than the person who's just showing me what you got, making content over and over and over. Storytelling is like how you, find the heart and soul of whoever that page is, And the people that do it well, like I said, I think have that engagement and that retention with the audience.
Yeah, I think that's super important. And, as I was prepping for this episode, I kind of posed that to myself, and I was like, it's interesting. Is it a money thing? Is it a times are changing thing? Is it a, there's so many things that I'm like, maybe it's this, maybe it's that, maybe it's all of them. Yeah, but it's so interesting because like when I'm just gonna vaguely describe the time, like when Casey Neistat was like doing the daily vlog and everything, like obviously I'm not saying that from the point of storytelling because obviously he was the best at that for the platform at the time, but it was a content world, and I don't know if that just got stale or if then it was like, okay, but what's the way to stand out? And it's interesting because social media became a thing, and then different types of social media became a thing. It's not just MySpace. Your storytelling isn't based on the emo song from the 2000s that you have with the background that you HTML yourself. But now it's, okay, I have 6 seconds with Vine to grab people. I have, obviously there's time isn't as much of an issue on social media anymore, but I have, I have to hook them in. I need a story to bring them in. Is it because there's so much saturation now that we've gotten to the point of, all right, well, just throwing things at the wall doesn't work anymore because it's so much saturation in the market. Now I have to actually be good.
Well, the platforms all ask for different inputs.
True.
So like TikTok started out as, Musical.ly or whatever, and it was just people doing quick dances, and that became the culture. It's a culture thing. So then a lot of those content creators were, TikTokers were the dancers, right? But then now it's starting to take a life of its own where like quick stories, the short form, like, fun explainer videos or like, the cooking videos where you actually learn something. That's storytelling, when you talk about ingredients start to finish, it has a beginning. Here are the ingredients, it has a middle, here's me cooking, and here's the end, the final food. You know what I mean? So those type videos started to take over, and now there are content creators of all different facets on all different platforms that are learning to leverage whatever they're given and tell stories. And the better that people are at that, I think better that they're going to do on the platform. It does take a lot more effort, I think, to do that. And you're seeing a lot more resources put behind some of these creators that back in the day might just be, on their cell phone. Like we talk about all over the place. Like I was just watching like Linus Tech Tips or whatever. The amount of people that are involved in his productions is rivaling like, TV channels.
Yeah.
Like, so it's there's a lot more coming with it, but like at the end of the day, it's all storytelling, and the people that are doing that well, to me, I don't think it ever went anywhere. I think that there was just less people that understood it, and social media was so new that a lot of people weren't really doing it there. But if you really look at like Vine and like King Bach and Logan Paul and them, they were telling stories. They were doing ridiculous stuff, but it was like skits and funny, like humor. Like they just leveraged that platform for how it was created to be used and intended to be used, and told stories with it. Even with captioning and in your descriptions, people that have better descriptions and are telling a story about what they do tend to have better retention because people are like they want to know more.
Yeah, so you kind of mentioned vaguely, beginning, middle, and end. There's a 3-act structure. We work with people that have an 8-act structure. That aside, why is it important to implement a structure to your story?
Yeah, so I learned this a long time ago that a lot of writers, they know how their story is going to end before they start writing the story. So when you know where your story is going to go, it's a lot easier to craft and character develop because all the decisions that characters are supposed to make throughout the story are all a culmination of how the final product is. I think people, they just start making and they forget like it has to go somewhere and have a payoff. And without the payoff, there's no like, I don't want to watch anymore. If you did hook me and do all the, cheeky things to get me to watch, and then the ending is like, man, like I don't want to watch it.
It's a fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when you have a really solid ending and you understand that that's like what it's about, even if it's, leaving another hook so that they watch the next video, which you see like, oh, in part 2, check this part, the finished renovation or whatever.
Yeah.
It makes me want to go watch again, right? So it's about having the ending and then building your story kind of backwards, reverse engineering it and working towards that.
How have we implemented that concept in some of the work that we've done?
Yeah, how we implement it. Well, number one, working with clients, one of the questions we ask them is like, where is this video going to live, and what are you trying to get out of this?
Yeah.
Whether it be sales, whether it be, getting more people out there or just getting a message out there or donations. That's kind of our ending. So, and now we try to figure out how do we do that in a creative way. Now we can reverse engineer that, and let's say it's it's a charity that wants donations, and we need to tell this story. Okay, that's our ending. Now we want to tell the story of the charity. Start at the beginning, how it was formulated, put together, people that it's affected, maybe some of the research going into that development, and here's how you can help and be a part of it. And that's our ending, and that's our culmination. But always ask those questions up front, or if you're developing something, for yourself, what am I trying to tell with this story? What's the purpose of it? Because if you don't have purpose or why, there's no point of really starting anything. If if something affected you greatly and you want to make a film about it, you have the why. Now you need to figure out, okay, what's the ending and what do I want people to take away from this piece of, material,
So why does storytelling work throughout so many different mediums? You look at video, everything has its own quirks and pros and cons, but I'd be hard pressed to find a creative medium that doesn't somehow have story involved.
It's the easiest way to engage people and keep them focused on what you're doing.
Yeah.
Like, it's like if I took a picture of this plant and just sent you the picture of the plant without telling you anything about it, you'd be like, what is that?
I would text you, thank you for that beautiful picture of the plant,
Yeah.
but I need some story.
But if I do a video of the plant and I'm like, hey, Dids, check out this plant that my family brought back from, this tropical country. There's only 100,000 left of those species, so I'm trying to help reinvigorate the population of plants in the world. Would you like to have one? I even just look at your face. You're like, where am I? I'm telling you a
Yeah.
story. You're like, oh, what is
Yeah.
he talking about?
I'm gonna stop you though.
I just made that up.
Yeah, no, but I like that. So then tell me how that story works through different mediums, because you went to video accidentally.
Right.
Tell me how that could work as a photo. Tell me how that, because I'll
Right.
just, maybe I'll answer it first, in how I'm thinking it to help you get context to the question. But you went to video, but in my head I'm like, okay, but that photo could be taken.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, your example was just here in the studio, but like if you wanted to tell a story, like reality is out of the window for this example, but like it could be in a rainforest that's maybe mostly torn down and it's one of few left.
Right.
Writing, you could, basically what you said could be the copy of the photo and could work as that. So,
well, yeah, we take posts sometimes and we have to format it for different platforms because it's just like the way. But yeah, writing the copy next to the photo, now you have something you can read that engages you. And why do you think people read books? Storytelling. They're learning. There's information.
I don't read books.
Yeah, but it's been around for thousands and thousands of years and not going anywhere because people like to be engaged and locked into a story and what's going to happen next. I could have a whole book about, these specific plants and why we need to save them. I could have a TikTok that's quickly explaining this, and this, and why that's happening. I could have a whole film where we go to the jungle and we bring back some and we replant them and try to, bring up a new, grow them somewhere. No matter the medium or what you're kind of talking about, there is a way to kind of, share it so that it's engaging and it is storytelling.
Yes. I think that's a beautiful way to put it. And I think it's important for people to understand that we're all, we're filmmakers. So we're like, all right, how does this turn out through video? But like, it's so easy to copy paste that into anything. You could make a painting about it. You could write a song about it. You could put a haiku poem together about it. It's all universal. All things are done through story. So how do we tell that story? Let's talk about some gear selection. We're going to kind of swing now back to the filmmaking side because that is truly what we are. Let's talk about gear. There are a lot of different ways that when we're on set, we're even in pre-production, we went through that in the last, couple episodes ago. How do we make these selections and why do we intentionally do certain things to tell blank story?
Yeah. When I'm concepting and early pre-production, we talk about mood. So mood with the story, I think, is one of the places I like to start. And with that is like, okay, are we going to light it low-key look? Is it going to be a little like kind of gritty? And like, is the story there that, is it a dark kind of, topic that's kind of, hits you and makes you feel some type of way? Maybe our lighting needs to be a little bit more grungy and the location needs to be a little more dirty to kind of explain that feeling a little bit more. Or is it a Hollywood or a holiday commercial? It needs to be brighter and have warm, light and like make you feel cozy, right? So once we figure that out at the beginning, that helps me to decide, okay, what kind of gear do I need to use? And as a filmmaker, lighting, number one, I kind of start with, okay, I want to use these type of lights. I want, I might want the overhead, kind of look to make you kind of feel, a little bit, what's the word, mysterious. I may have that type of look, and I'm going for that, kind of have the Godfather look because that's the kind of look that I want to go for. So I know that overhead lighting and hard light will make that character look and appear to be more gritty and scary. Or I may have, a beautiful person that we want to accent their skin tones, and I might go with a more soft look, maybe have a lot more diffusion and just really do the Rembrandt lighting and just make them look, more of a beauty look. So all of that is kind of in that mood at the beginning. And so then I take my mind to what type of lighting do we want to use? And from there, it's, the camera side of it. The next idea, the thing that I want to look at there is, okay, if we have budget, what type of lenses, what type of look with the lenses do I want to go with? Do I want, sharp tack lenses that give you that, almost clinical digital feel? Or do I want, something that has some character to it, is a little softer of a lens that, has some different distortions and things that make you just kind of feel kind of filmic, like old school film. You start making those decisions there if you have the budget, and that's all pre-production in my mind. Because once you get to the day of the shoot, you're working with your gaffers and your grips, with the lighting you selected. You've sent them over your mood board. You sent them over your shot list. Different shots that you are inspired by for this shoot, and now it's up to that kind of portion of it. And we can talk about this next maybe, but like the shot types and the different framing.
Yeah, so maybe the best way, you kind of already started on the lighting, so maybe we can skip past that. But let's say I'm thinking about this at the drop of a hat, so I might be mixing this up. But let's say there's 3 main elements: lighting, audio, visual.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of covered the lighting.
Yeah.
So feel free. I think you're going to spend the most time on visual, so maybe audio next.
Okay, so yeah, for me, audio is soundtrack to your life. What kind of mood, and this is I've seen a lot of different things where people will put different songs on the same footage and it feels completely different, right? So depending on the mood, and we all know music makes you feel. For me, maybe one of the things that makes me feel the most emotional. I can get that feeling really quickly, listen to music. So having the proper soundtrack to go with the mood. If I have a sad scene where, someone died and we're trying to like deal with our emotions, like I'm not going to have an upbeat, happy tempo song there, right? So yeah, finding the right mood that matches that, the sound effects, even with like, the dialogue of those scenes, it's really important to kind of have everything cohesive with the sound in one part. And for me, like that's something that a lot of it happens in post. You can maybe find references for things leading up to shoot day. If you're like, okay, this scene is going to be like a really, this is a fight scene. I want to up tempo, action pack. I might have that be playing that the day before our shoot just to kind of get a vibe for what we're about to go into. And the song might change, but the emotion you want with the music, right? Getting into like the camera side of it though, there's a lot of different decisions that are made on, shot type and focal range. If you want to make somebody look confused, for instance, and they're not sure what's going on and they're looking around in a room lost, I would probably do that with a super wide lens really up under them and close to them. And now it gives the appearance that they have like their brain's moving faster than they need to be moving, right? Or you could even like mess around with the shutter speed so it looks a little blurry, so they're just kind of lost in the sauce. So that's like a decision in camera that you can make to help tell the story further and make them feel, a little bit like lost, right? Or I can shoot with a 200 millimeter lens from way back, and that compression makes them feel almost like they're trapped inside themselves. So that gives a different emotion versus like the nifty 50 making them look like perfect. You know what I mean? So it depends on what you're trying to go with. If I have this is kind of frame kind of thing, but point of reference, if I want to try to make a character feel bigger than life, larger than life, a hero, bring my camera a little bit lower and I shoot up at them. And then whoever they're talking to, we may shoot a little down at them, and it gives the appearance that this person has power over this person. And a lot of great filmmakers use that to their advantage with the dialogue. And sometimes the dialogue may change the conversation, and that actually switches. And you feel that with the camera angles. And it's a really interesting thing. If someone's having a tough day and they're depressed, that camera might be higher looking down at them, and it gives a perspective that they're in like trapped in their own world.
I think the most interesting part, this sucks from our perspective, because as filmmakers, we can't watch something and not pick it apart.
Yeah.
But I want people that maybe aren't as knowledgeable to know that whatever you watch, every single thing is done intentionally. There's nothing that's not done on purpose. That goes to the camera lens that's used, that's gone to the lighting in the set, that's gone to the angle that they're at.
The wardrobe, the set
everything.
design.
Yep. So yeah, feel free to dive into how important set design, wardrobe, things like that are.
Yeah, so all of that all helps to tell that story. If you're doing a period piece from the 1920s, right? Like you want to source the materials and the clothing that they were wearing there to help you feel like you're in that world, and it helps tell a story. You may have a character that has dirty, dingy clothes. They walk in a room, with a room with people with nice buttoned up suits and things that are, pressed to the nines. That's going to tell me that maybe they come from a different demographic than the people that they're talking to. And it's also going to tell me that without having to tell me.
Right.
And filmmaking is, when it's done well, it shows, it doesn't.
It answers the
speaks.
questions that you didn't know that you have because you don't have to ask them because it's doing it for you.
Yeah.
That's a long way to say it, but that's essentially what's happening.
Yeah, show, not tell. If a character has to come out and say, "Oh, my clothes are so dirty because I haven't made any money the last 2 years," like that's bad dialogue.
That's a bad video game with really bad dialogue.
Right.
Because I've seen those.
But if they walk in and you see all these things and they haven't shaved in months, like that they're going through some stuff versus the contrast of maybe someone they're talking to that's all, shaved up. If you want to look it up, and I don't know everything about filmmaking, I'm always constantly learning, but the concept is the language of filmmaking. And if you look up that, you can find a lot of different resources that really do explain, especially from camera side, what these different camera angles and shot sizes do as far as feeling of a character. If you want somebody going on an epic journey, you almost always see these super wide shots and landscapes and them moving, and it just gives you the feeling that like they're on the way on a journey. It's Lord of the Rings and they're looking for the ring, right? Like there's a story and a language, and these things have been done over and over, and it's something that's kind of routine to filmmakers. Like it's standard, and there are rules to filmmaking. And the rules that can be broken if they're broken purposefully.
This is true.
And when they it works
like
really.
There are purposeful examples of breaks.
Yeah, and then there's, things with the 180-degree rule where, it just, if you're not doing that properly, it's throwing the audience out of, like, they're not.
Again, like I said, done intentionally. You don't know it because you're like, something just ain't right, but like you might not know that.
Not exactly what it is. But sometimes filmmakers will break that rule, and they're breaking it on purpose to help show like a change in, someone's,
in the story
mindset, really. Yeah, exactly. So, there's a lot of great resources on different things like, whether it's shot sizes or what type of lighting for what type of situation. And it's really important to understand all those things so that you can make the right decision, especially for your clients and things you're doing. You don't want to have these dark, dim, low-key lit commercial for somebody that's like selling animal like sweaters or something, right? Like they may not want that look, and if that's all you know how to do, then you kind of you make yourself kind of messed up.
We're both nerds, so
we're different type of nerds.
We're different type of nerds, but I'm getting video games. We're both video game nerds.
Yes.
So I really forgot about it asking this until you kind of brought up, but one thing that I think is important, and I'm going to not directly call out storytelling here, but I'm going to use a term called conveyance. And to me, within a video game, good conveyance is basically to say, it's mostly relating to control scheme. Or like how the game presents itself to you. If I'm walking around and I need pop-up bubbles to tell me every button, why it works, how it works, that's bad conveyance. If I'm walking around a level and I'm like, where in the heck do I go? Bad conveyance. Mm-hmm. The other thing is in my personal episode, I talked about Super Metroid. That game starts with Super Metroid lore is vast and confusing, but it was the third game created and a sequel to the second game, essentially. But the beginning of the game is basically you see the character, the visor is like half cut off, like I just got back from a mission, and she's telling you the story. Text pops up, visuals pop up. Before you go in, you know exactly why you're there, you know exactly what your mission is, and this is Super Nintendo, so they do
It's like
it in a way
it's a
that
prelude,
exactly.
so you know what happened before.
But then you basically go through your tutorial level, which basically forces you to learn the controls by doing Great Conveyance. And then you get to a part where you get into a room, an empty room, you see the Metroid, and then you're like, all right, I want this. So you're like, I'm going to pick this up, but you can't. And then the bad guy basically shows up, takes it away. So within that, we really feel then that because of that, you know exactly what's happening, you know exactly your mission, and immediately you feel it.
Mm-hmm.
You feel exactly what's happening, you know exactly your problem, you know exactly why you're there, you know exactly what you need to do, and then you go do it. And that game to me is just one of the best examples of like story within video game. Is there any more that like stand out to you? Night in the Woods is a great indie game. I'm just gonna drop that because it's like my favorite story game. Go look at it. Beautiful story, well conveyed. Go.
Oh man, I mean,
many.
There's so many. I think instead of me talking about all these storytelling aspects and within games that I like, I think it's cool. Like that game, instead of wasting your tutorial time, it actually moved the story forward while helping you get acclimated to what the buttons are and what those things are. And I think that's what really good games will, even if it adds in a new mechanic halfway through, it does it in a way to like help progress the story. So you never feel like you're just like having to like learn these random things to do anything, right?
Right.
I guess there's a game that I would talk about is The Last of Us. Like it was adapted to a TV show, and the TV show was going on to be one of the, to me, probably the best film media of any video game ever.
Yep.
I'd have to, I don't know, there may be a few out there, but typically video game movies or TV shows are not very good.
Let's just quick diversion. Walking Dead, the Telltale series, is basically a choose your own adventure story. That is a video game based on the TV show. Great story.
Yeah, but it was the other way around though, right? They made that after.
But I'm just saying,
show.
like it exists. Like there are.
Yeah.
That is another medium.
Like I think,
to tell a story.
like The Witcher, great video game, but it was booked before, so I can't really give that one. The TV show is really good too. I can't give them that one. But The Last of Us was a video game that they actually made a really good show on. And you know what they did with that is they continued to just tell the stories of the characters. So it was a little bit less. They kind of removed all of the gameplay elements. You know, they weren't killing zombies, like 100 zombies in one scene or whatever. Like in the game, you're like sneaking around doing that like every other corner, right? But the story beats were literally like spot on a lot of times. The cutscenes in the movie or in the TV show and in the game were almost exactly identical in a lot of places. But then they explored those relationships more, which gave you, if you've never played the game, you wouldn't even know. But as someone that played the game, you get these different feelings and just more in-depth like character development they did in that show, which to me is why it did so well. And it wasn't and they had a lot of money behind it.
Yeah.
But they did a good job of storytelling and expanding that story because the video game was one of the best storytelling video games there is, you know? And that's one that stands out to me.
I love it. In closing, we'll both answer this. What is a tip or some tips that people can utilize to tell a better story?
Tip one, I would say, and I mentioned this earlier, know where your story is going, what the point of the story is, and how you want to finish it before we start trying to figure out how you're going to start it and get to the climax and grow your story. Start there. Number two, don't do anything within your story because it's cool. Whether it's like, I want to rent this camera or it's cool. You know, let me get this lens because it's cool. No. Choose and make every decision based on your gear, your process. Are you going to use a gimbal? Are you using a dolly? Are you going to use just a tripod locked off? Because of the story. Make those decisions in that regard. When I started out, like most people, when they start out, they wanted a gimbal so bad because they just want to run and gun with a gimbal, and they thought that was awesome.
I mean, we were both those people.
Yeah. You know. Now I've realized, the gimbal has a purpose, and it's a much less of a purpose than I had figured out in the beginning, right? Mm-hmm. I used it for everything. Now it comes out every once in a while when we have a shot on the list that needs a gimbal. It's just a tool. So make sure you learn what tools are used for or why they're used, and then start to make decisions based on that.
And for me, I think authenticity and branding. I think it's important to realize that if you are the story that you're telling yourself from the social media standpoint, for example, your brand is you. And I think it's important to realize that the story that you tell needs to be authentic. It needs to be on brand, and it needs to be truly yourself. And I think that is so easy to go to cool that you miss out on the long-term value that your story has. And the beautiful thing is, no matter how existential you want to take this, your life is a story. Mm-hmm. So let's have fun with it.
Yeah, and work on it one page at a time.
One page at a time. And one page at a time, we hope that you enjoyed this podcast and that you flip over to the next page and listen to the next one, flip back a couple, maybe listen to some of those past chapters in our story that is this podcast. But either way, we appreciate you checking us out and watching or listening along. Feel free to leave us a like, a comment, a review, all of those fun things. They help out greatly. Share this with a friend. Give us your thoughts in the comments, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
Peace.